I had just finished folding the last of my son's laundry when she walked into the living room like she owned it. My husband wasn't home. He rarely was anymore. Work kept him away, or so he claimed. She placed her handbag on the center table and looked around like she was scanning her kingdom. I tried to be polite. After all, she was family. "Nice curtains," she said, but the way she said it made me feel small, like she was inspecting a cheap motel room. She wasn't just judging the curtains, she was judging me, my choices, my home. I didn't know it then, but this was the beginning of a calculated invasion. I had inherited this house from my parents. It was my safe place, my sanctuary. My husband moved in after our marriage, and though I loved him, a part of me always kept this home rooted in my identity, not ours. Mine. The first red flag was subtle. A misplaced document. Then another. Keys that I swore I left in the drawer were now in her purse. I began questioning myself. Was I overthinking it? Was I being paranoid? Or was something deeply wrong? She started staying over more frequently. Once a week became every other night. Then suddenly, she had her own drawer. Her own room. My father-in-law was quiet, always shadowing her. If she was the queen, he was the silent knight. Unreadable, loyal only to her. My husband kept dismissing my concerns.
"She's old," he'd say.
"She just wants to be close to family." But I saw it. The way she'd eye the title deed whenever I opened the cabinet. The way she whispered with him in the kitchen, and they'd both glance at me when I walked in. I started locking things. My documents. My jewelry. Even my bedroom door at night. And then the message came. A handwritten note on my pillow. "You'll be gone before the month ends. Just like you should have been from the beginning." I froze. I couldn't sleep that night. My heart pounded against my ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering, was I safe in my own home? Or had I already lost control? I didn't know who wrote the note, but deep down, I already knew. I kept telling myself it was just a prank. That maybe my husband was playing a twisted joke, though that wasn't like him. Or maybe I was spiraling. But the fear wouldn't let me rest. The next morning, I acted normal. Cooked breakfast, served everyone, even smiled as if the crumbling inside me hadn't begun. But my hands trembled when I handed my father-in-law his tea. He stared at me, long and hard, and said, "Make sure you get the walls checked. Cracks are starting to show." Cracks? He wasn't talking about the house. I checked the safe again that day. Everything looked untouched. But something felt off, like someone had been there and carefully put things back to make me feel insane. I decided to take photos of all my legal documents, birth certificates, the house deed, my parents' will, everything. Then one day, while cleaning the storage room, I found it. A box I didn't recognize, filled with photocopies of my property papers, with my name scratched off and my husband's written in blue ink. Sloppy but clear. I stared at the forged copy, heart thudding, mind racing. Who would do this?
Why?
I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I started listening, really listening, to every whisper behind doors. Every strange phone call my husband took. One night, I heard him say softly on the phone, "She won't fight it. She never does. Once it's done, it's done." Once what is done? The walls of my home felt like they were closing in. Every shadow seemed longer. Every silence felt louder. I could feel something building, like the moment before a thunderstorm when everything holds its breath. They were planning something. I was sure of it. And then it happened. I came home early from work to find them gathered at the dining table, my husband, his parents, and a man in a gray suit with a leather briefcase. A lawyer. They looked up, startled. My mother-in-law smiled too quickly. "You're early," she said, sipping tea. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice tight. "Oh," my husband said, pretending nonchalance, "just reviewing some paperwork for the future."
"Don't worry about it."
But I did worry, especially when I glanced at the paper in the lawyer's hand and saw the word, ownership transfer. My name wasn't on the page. I left without a word. Went straight to the bank, to the legal office. Everything was still intact for now. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I stared out the window, watching the moonlight drape over the garden, wondering how long before they made their next move. I knew they were trying to make me feel cornered,
They wanted me to snap.
to give them a reason. And then, as if the universe decided to confirm my fear, I received another note, this time inside my handbag. You can leave quietly or be forced out. That was the moment I realized I had to fight back. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, the note crumpled in my hand, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Leave quietly or be forced out. The threat was real now. Not paranoia. Not imagination. It was written, direct, and dangerously close. I took a deep breath and began retracing every step from the past few weeks. The strange calls, the forged papers, the lawyer's visit, the glances they exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking. This wasn't just an inheritance grab. It was a setup. A carefully orchestrated plan to strip me of everything, my house, my identity, my voice. But the real betrayal hadn't even hit me yet. That came 2 days later, when I took the risk and hired a private investigator. It wasn't easy. I had to sell a piece of gold jewelry secretly, one of the few things my mother had left me. But I needed someone to help uncover the truth. And within 3 days, he delivered a truth I wasn't prepared for. They've been trying to transfer the house for months, the investigator said, flipping through his folder. Your husband's parents already drew up false paperwork saying the house was gifted to them. They tried to submit it twice. But they can't, I said, my voice trembling. My name is on every legal document. I have the originals. He nodded. That's what stopped it. But someone inside the legal office tipped them off about how to proceed. They're planning to file for adverse possession. I stared blankly. It's a legal loophole. If someone stays in a property long enough and claims ownership, they can sometimes take it, especially if the actual owner isn't actively enforcing their rights. But I live here. Yes, but they're building a story to make it look like you abandoned it, or that it was theirs all along. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. And then he handed me a photo. It was of my husband, sitting at a cafe, with another woman. He leaned in, touching her hand, smiling. That's not all, the investigator continued. He's been seeing her for over 6 months. And he's planning to move in with her once this house thing is settled. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a greedy grab by my in-laws. This was betrayal at every level. The man I loved had helped plan my erasure. I went completely still. I replayed our life together in my head, his sudden interest in my family's assets, the way he encouraged his parents to move in just for support, his recent coldness. It all made sense now. He was using me. They all were. And I had let it happen right under my own roof. But not anymore. I thanked the investigator, tucked the folder into my coat, and walked home in a daze. Everything looked the same walls, the same furniture, the same people pretending to care. But nothing was the same anymore. I was living among enemies. At dinner that night, I sat across from them, smiling politely. My husband said something about painting the living room. My father-in-law joked about converting the guest room into an office. All I could hear was the lie, the plotting. I quietly placed my napkin on the table and stood up. I'll be going to the city tomorrow, I said casually. Why? My husband asked. I need to file something at the legal office. Just tying up some property matters. His hand froze halfway to his glass. His eyes flicked to his mother, then back to me. Oh, he said, trying to sound uninterested. Everything okay? Perfectly fine, I said, smiling wider. Just want to make sure everything is protected. They didn't say much after that, but the silence around that table screamed louder than any words. Later that night, I locked my room, pulled out the investigator's folder again, and made a plan. I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. They expected that. They were ready for that. But I was going to beat them at their own game. Because now, I knew everything. And they had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was still, draped in early morning shadows. The only sound was the slow hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional creak of the wooden floor as I moved. I was careful, every step planned, every movement intentional. I dressed simply, tied my hair back, and slipped the folder into my bag. Then I took one final look around the house, the photos, the cushions, the little figurines on the shelf I had collected over the years. This had been my safe space, my mother's legacy, my sanctuary. And now it was my battlefield. I left without a word. No breakfast, no note. Just a locked door behind me. By 9 a.m., I was standing in front of the district property registrar's office. With trembling hands, I submitted a formal claim of ownership, restating legal possession, submitting original title deeds, and most importantly, filing a restraining caveat against any property transfer attempts made by any third party. The clerk barely looked up. "You're just in time," she said. "Someone tried to schedule a hearing for this plot next week." My heart dropped. They used my husband's surname, claimed he had power of attorney. "He doesn't," I said firmly. "And here's proof." I watched her stamp and file the documents. The process was official. Now it was time to make it personal. That evening, I walked into the house with a calmness I hadn't felt in weeks. They were all there, his mother in the kitchen, his father watching television, and him, sprawled across the couch, phone in hand. He looked up. "You left without saying anything." "I had errands," I replied, placing my bag down. "Just paperwork." A flicker of tension passed between his eyes. "What kind of paperwork?" his mother asked from the kitchen. "Oh, just protecting my property. You know, making sure no one else claims it. Things like that." My husband sat up straighter. "What do you mean?" "I mean I know what you're doing," I said, turning to face them all. "I know about the forged documents. I know about the adverse possession filing. And I know about her." Silence. His face flushed instantly. "I don't know what you're talking about," he mumbled. I stepped closer. "You do. And so do your parents." His mother came around the corner, mouth open. "You're being paranoid. No one's doing anything. We've always supported you." I cut her off.
No.
"You moved in here with a plan. You wanted what wasn't yours. You tried to erase me. But I got ahead of you." My voice was shaking, not from fear, but rage. "You underestimated me. You thought I'd break quietly, that I wouldn't fight back." They exchanged panicked glances. "And now you're scared." "I'm not scared," my husband snapped. "You're acting crazy." "Am I?" I reached into my bag and threw the photographs onto the coffee table. The image of him with the other woman, hands entwined, laughing, landed right on top. He froze. "You plan to kick me out," I said. "After everything I did for you. You had the nerve to scheme with your parents under my roof." His mother finally lost her composure. "You're being dramatic. We were just trying to secure the family's assets. You weren't even born into this house. I inherited it from my mother." I shouted. "She gave it to me legally. You were guests. And now you're criminals." My husband stood. "You're blowing things out of proportion." I didn't back down. "You didn't just betray me. You played with my life. But you forgot one thing." I leaned in, voice sharp and cold. "I don't lose what's mine." The next day, I changed the locks. I filed a legal notice requiring them to vacate the property within 48 hours or face formal eviction proceedings. I even contacted a women's rights legal aid group who offered me support and additional legal backup. They tried to resist. But with forged documents, surveillance, and infidelity proof on my side, the law was mine to hold. On the second evening, I heard them packing. No words were exchanged. Not anymore. My husband couldn't even look me in the eye. The woman he thought was weak, naive, and disposable had turned into something else entirely. A woman who refused to let herself be stolen from. A woman who rebuilt her spine out of betrayal and stood taller than ever. When they walked out of my house, bags in hand, there was no victory speech. No need for one. Their silence was my triumph. Their shame, my liberation. The house was quiet again. No footsteps pacing in the hallway. No passive-aggressive comments over breakfast. No tension thick enough to choke on. Just silence. Beautiful, healing silence. For the first time in months, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea, the warmth seeping through my palms like sunlight after a storm. The curtains fluttered in the breeze, and the scent of jasmine from the garden filled the air. It was mine. Every corner, every creak, every whisper of wind inside these walls, it all belonged to me again. I had won, but it didn't feel like triumph. It felt sobering. Because even though I had kicked them out, even though I had the legal papers and the justice system behind me, something inside me had cracked permanently. Not in a broken way, but in a way that forced me to rebuild. From zero. From truth. I wasn't the same woman who nervously handed over house keys. I wasn't the same wife who brushed off lies for the sake of peace. I had shed that version of me like dead skin, and what remained was sharper, clearer, braver. But healing is never simple, is it? A week after their departure, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. No stamp.
Just slid under my gate like a secret.
Inside, folded in half, was a handwritten note. I didn't know they were going this far.
I'm sorry.
I should have told you sooner. It wasn't signed, but I knew who it was from. His cousin, Samina. The only one in the family who used to give me small, knowing glances. The one who hesitated before smiling too quickly when they gossiped about me. She must have seen what they were doing and felt trapped. Powerless. But she hadn't warned me when it would have made a difference. And still, her words lingered like a ghost. I should have told you sooner. That was the thing about betrayal. It rarely came with full-force war. Sometimes, it came in whispers, in silence, in the people who stood by and watched as you were torn apart. That note went straight into my drawer of evidence, not for revenge. For memory. Because forgetting would be a bigger crime than what they did. A few days later, I saw him again. Not in person, but online. A new account. A different name. A photo from another city. His caption read, "New beginnings." Sometimes, things fall apart to make room for better things. He had blocked me, of course. But the universe has a way of letting truths find their way back. He had moved on. Probably with her. They were trying to build a new life off of the wreckage they thought they'd leave behind. But the house? The one they had tried to steal, manipulate, and claim? It stood tall. With me inside it. Every time I looked at the walls, I didn't see trauma anymore. I saw resistance. I saw the strength it took to stay. To fight. To protect what was rightfully mine. Then came the twist. Late one night, my phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. You think you won. But you don't know the whole story. I stared at it, heart pounding. The timing was too deliberate. The words too calculated.
Was it him?
His mother? Someone else from the family? I replied only once. I don't need to know the rest. I know enough. And that's why I'm still standing. No response. I blocked the number. But the seed of paranoia had been planted. Had they hidden something deeper? Was there more beneath the surface of their greed? Something darker? I didn't know. And I wasn't sure I wanted to. Because sometimes the most powerful act of survival is choosing not to dig. Not because you're afraid of what you'll find, but because you've already seen enough to reclaim your peace. Weeks passed. I painted one wall yellow. Just one. Like sunlight trapped in a room. I changed the curtains. Bought new locks. And most importantly, I opened the windows. Not just for air, but for hope. This house had seen deception. Manipulation. Threats.
Tears.
But it had also seen a woman transform. A woman who walked into her pain and didn't run from it. A woman who was almost erased, but instead carved her name deeper into the foundation. I often get asked, if you had the chance to do it all over again, would you? And my answer? Yes. Because I found something in this fight that I'd lost long ago. My voice. Not the kind you use to speak to others. The kind you use to remind yourself you matter. You belong. You will not be erased. And so the final twist isn't a secret someone else tried to hide from me. It's the truth I uncovered all by myself. That power doesn't come from having something others want. It comes from knowing you don't need anyone's permission to keep it. The house is quiet again, but this time it feels like peace.